was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone. Now my shift is finally over, I gotta deal with what's mine and try to find a way to leave those tragedies behind. So I hug my 2 children, I kiss on my wife. Just another day, the first responder's life. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone. Flashing lights fill the air, broken bodies everywhere. Another bad dream is stealing my sleep. 'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone, it keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.
Welcome to the award-winning Mad Radio with John and Sam. We are your first responders network. Once again, it is awesome to be with you this week. John is on shift work, so I'm sorry you're stuck with me again, people. I love you. I love you. It has been a completely crazy busy week since our last show. If you're not in the Dallas area, we just had the 5th anniversary of the Dallas 5, the 5 police officers that lost their lives 5 years ago on 7/7 after or during a Black Lives Matter protest in Dallas when a shooter opened fire, again, taking 5 of our blue heroes to heaven. So we celebrated that. It has been a rock and roll show for us and a badge of honor. We have been to the Garland Police Department today, and I am so happy to announce that we have a new partnership with the Veterans Resource and Outreach Center in Rowlett, Texas. They are all about healing our heroes as well. And so we are offering, if you are a veteran or first responder, not only do we have offices up there now, again, that's the VROC, Veterans Resource and Outreach Center on Industrial Street in Rowlett, but we also have some mental health for you if you're a veteran, because it's all about taking care of this giant family that serves. And speaking of family that serves, tonight's show is going to be super awesome. We're going to do a deep dive talking about post-traumatic stress. Now, for those of you guys who know me, and John, the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is coming up here. And, you know, between that and what's going on in our crazy world, talking to a lot of first responders, the need to keep our brains healthy is really important. We are going to have the comment stream. It's actually live right now. So I'm encouraging everybody that's watching, hey, Megan, to ask questions of our next guest, because he is going to be able to really go deep into the first responder brain. Okay. His specialty in treating first responders, and frankly, how he's saving the lives of our friends. He is just near and dear to our hearts. It's personal for us, because he saved the lives of, you know, one of our closest friends, and it's just our honor to have him on with Mad Radio tonight. Chris Jones, welcome.
Hello.
To Mad Radio. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
You bet. And, you know, it is for you all in mental health, it's right now a really active time for you. There isn't a mental health expert that hasn't said, you know, I barely have time to go to the bathroom. My days are full left and right. We thank you for that, because we know the work that you're doing, healing our heroes. First of all, you guys, I just have to start off by saying their website. So it says Lifeology right there. Okay, that's the overarching. But Chris's website, okay, it's wefixbrains.com. When I first heard that, when you sent me your email, I was like, wait a second, is this like a personal email? Like, no. wefixbrains.com is the website. It's a group called Lifeology. Could you just talk about, you know, how you got started with Lifeology and what you guys do?
Yeah, I got started with Lifeology about 15 years ago now. And I was just making a change in the career, coming from doing some work along with probation department down in Ellis County. Was transitioning to private practice. And so I've loved it here for about 15 years. We're a unique practice in that we're collaborative, but we're also really niche based. So between primarily the Dallas office and the Fort Worth office, there's about 30 of us that are therapists. And we each have some type of specialty that we work on. So rather than be 30 therapists that try to be all and do all, we avoid that, because we think if you're trying to do everything, then you're probably not really good at anything. So we work with our therapists to really get in and specialize. And part of that being specializing in not trauma, but then there's a number of us that go a little bit deeper in being able to specialize in working with first responders and veterans and their trauma, because that's a different thing than, you know, some of the other traumas that we might encounter as therapists.
Yeah, and I would say my audience that's furry definitely agrees with you, folks. I'm sorry about the dogs in the background. We love dogs here. So Yeah, our let's face it, the baggage that we come to you with is highly specialized in that we aren't like other people. Yeah, some of
That's
us
right.
have trauma that does go back to childhood, but like I explained to the recruit class today in Garland, we've got our brains have a capacity, okay?
Hmm.
And with first responders, it's like a filing cabinet. And I know that our regular listeners, they know my filing cabinet analogy, and it's a trauma or a severe stress inducing incident happens. Okay, you take it, maybe you're able to process it out, you put it in the filing cabinet. Next one, filing cabinet, filing cabinet. Well, know that the filing cabinet only has so much room in it. And so when it's full, we're just going on with life thinking everything's fine. And then one day we're in the grocery store and there's a noise. We're running out. We're in our car and we're bawling our eyes out. And we have no idea what's going on. But however long we've been a first responder in the military, everything comes out all at once.
Hmm.
And that's where we need folks like you who help us understand why we are now not able to put a smile on our face, why we're cynical, why we want to like punch the next person that we see.
Yeah.
We talk about anger a lot. And talk about a day in the life of, so that our listeners can really understand.
Yeah. So I like the analogy that you use with the filing cabinet. I would build off of that to say that it's not a one drawer filing cabinet. That one moment in time, that one report is actually written into 3 different files, and it's in a 3 drawer filing cabinet, which, using what you're talking about, you can come out of the grocery store and you can burst into tears for a reason that you can't really be sure of. That's because it came from one of the drawers, to where at another point in time, you may suddenly get a lot of visual imagery of something that had gone on. Or at another point in time, you may just feel your body tensing up, wanting to choke somebody out, be really hyper vigilant. That would be its own separate drawer there. So you guys can be getting hit with any one or any combination of information popping out of the drawer at any given time.
And what do you call that? Because that's kind of cool. We've never heard the 3 drawer.
Well, it's how memory's stored. And so the quick lesson on that is, we tend to the misunderstanding is that a memory is sort of, it's this one block that you experience at, say, a trauma. Well, it's if everybody watched the opening video there of kind of the motor vehicle accident, it doesn't store in our brains as that one single moment in time and event. It actually goes into 3 very distinct areas of our brain. And so in the back part of the brain, if you're looking at that video, it's storing the memory of that moment. Your heart rate, your respiration, what digestion's doing, everything physically within you, the tension of your body, the memory of that moment, the experience of that moment is stored in the back of the brain, near the brainstem. Near the center part, in that moment, all of the emotional memory and a lot of the sensory material of that accident is there. So everything from the fear to the some of the adrenaline to the heartbreak to everything you're seeing, everything you're smelling, tasting, hearing, all of that is getting stored in its own space. And then in the front part of the brain, everything that you're thinking about is getting stored there. And what's really unique about that part of the brain, and becomes an important factor in trying to deal with it, is that's the only part of the brain that timestamps it. It's the only part that knows that it happened on September 11, 2001. It's the only part that knows, in your case, I'm a first responder. I'm here to help. I'm doing my job. And so it's in 3 different filing cabinets. Now, when the brain processes it perfectly, those 3 filing cabinets have a link. And when you pull out one drawer, then you can access it all and you can work it. And you can navigate it and it slides back in. But with PTSD, when the brain struggles to consume all that information, it has like a circuit breaker because it's just too overwhelming. It can't handle it. And the circuit breaker happens between that thinking part of the brain and the other 2. So when you come out of the grocery store and you start having maybe a lot of the emotions of that wreck, you can't think your way out of it because the brain was so traumatized in the moment, it didn't wire it together. And so we're having to keep in mind that all of this memory it's chemistry and wiring. It's not just something that's floating around in there. And so a lot of the frustration that I experience with responders is they try to think their way out of the problem, but you're only accessing one filing cabinet when you're trying to do that. The wiring is physically not there to access the other 2. So that's where we get in with EMDR and some additional approaches, is that we wire the filing cabinet together so that we can pull it out, process it, and put it back in to a place that's more manageable.
So that wiring that I'm thinking in as you're speaking, is it cut, or is it just not connected in the first place? And
it's a good question. It's just not connected.
Okay.
At the moment that it should be going to those 3, like this memory right now. So our conversation is going to 3 different areas of the brain, the same 3. But because it's a pleasant conversation, then our brains have, through neural pathways, it's wiring it together. So we could hang up and come back tomorrow and have a conversation about it, and we get this kind of unified experience, within ourselves. But within the trauma, the brain just sort of shuts down. It goes into that fight or flight. There's certain things that it doesn't need to be thinking about or doing or getting caught up in. And so that wiring just doesn't happen. And so for a responder, it works to your advantage in the moment. And so if you're regular Joe like me, I'm stepping back from the car fire. But your brain and what you're forcing yourself to do is to go into it, which means you're having to tune out all the emotions that I may be experiencing and caught up in, all the physical stuff that I may be getting caught up in. Your brain, you've further trained it to turn that off and just go in and do a job. It doesn't need to be thinking about the other stuff. And if it goes well, then you come back out and it's wired together a little bit, and you can go back to the car, go back to the firehouse, and kind of think it through and dialogue and piece it together. But when it is exceptionally difficult, then it doesn't get wired, and you just go home going, okay, I did this thing, but those other 2 are left live. They don't turn off. If that kind of makes sense.
Absolutely. And so what complicates, what makes us the complicated cases, is that we continue this pattern of never connecting what needs to be connected in order to process and heal.
Yes.
And that could be, 5 years, 10 years, 15. We have police officers 40 years of disconnectedness. Is that a fair?
Yeah, that'd be accurate. Disconnected, and it's still live. So I use the circuit breaker term. So in our house, that's usually what comes to mind. So the circuit breaker at the house turns off the back bedroom when it gets overwhelmed with too many plugs. Mm-hmm. The brain doesn't turn it off. It just doesn't allow it to connect. And so you've got the one part of the brain that can timestamp it and go, man, that happened 5 years ago. Without that timestamp attached to those other 2, those 2 parts of the brain don't know 5 years ago from 5 seconds ago. So anything that can be similar to, whether it's a smell or a sound or just an emotion or something visual, can re-trigger and tell that brain bad stuff is happening. So then you get those post-trauma symptoms and experiences.
Okay, that's the stress reaction. Mm-hmm. Because our brain doesn't know that it happened 20 years ago. So let's try and talk this out. And I know John would not mind if I share this because we've talked about this before on the show. So we have a 9/11 Heroes Run every year. This was 2 years ago, and it was in a park in Dallas. And unbeknownst to us, they were imploding a parking structure that morning. Okay, yeah, like a little heads up, like, we're there.
Yeah.
A little heads up would have been nice. 9/11, the whole connection. So they implode the building while we're doing ceremonies. The dust comes into the park, and John has a trigger. John is triggered.
Yeah.
He can't breathe. And he needs help. Somebody else there knew exactly what was going on. I couldn't be there. I still kick myself. But that's in the past. I've moved on. I love you, John. I love you. Just come on. And so his brain was re-experiencing, even though it had happened, this is 18 years ago, it's as if it's happening again in the moment. Do I have that correct?
Right.
Okay.
So the one drawer, if we stick with that analogy, the front part of the brain can notice that it's, was the current year and that it's just this parking garage and that's what's going on. The other two don't know that. It hears we can assume it hears a sound, it sees the dust, it probably sees everybody tense up and potentially a little bit of a scramble and people looking around. And the brain would go, when that happens, there's bad stuff happening. It is time to kick into gear and go to work in some way. Fight or flight. That sympathetic nervous system just went 0 to 10 in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah. So guys, again, the comment stream is open because we're going deep here. We are really getting technical. This is the kind of stuff that I love, that I can totally geek out on. I wanna switch gears for a second. And how did you guys come about the name Lifeology?
That was a decision made, as you guys say, above my pay grade.
Okay.
When I came on board, it was LifeWorks Counseling. I think it had something to do with the names of other companies across the country, and so they rebranded it Lifeology.
Okay. All right. So there's no more into that than, I mean, it's cool.
Not that I'm aware of. It's unique. Melanie Wells, that owns and operates it, is fantastic at branding. She's an exceptional therapist. She's incredibly creative and is passionate about everything that we're doing. And this is just one of her things. Well,
creative is an understatement. It is probably one of the most creative websites of what you guys have on that. And we'll do a screen share so everybody knows what I'm talking about. Getting back to first responders walking into your office. Okay. So, what would you say, is there one effective strategy or treatment that is a plus for first responders versus the others? Because there's a ton of them.
Where I am and what we often use is EMDR, and we can go into more about what that is. But the approach is more often what we are doing as therapists on our end to prepare ourselves for the culture of what's walking in with us, because the first responder is going to enter our office much differently than any of our other clients. And so there are therapists that are equipped to work with you, and there are some that it's not their skill set, or it's not in them. They don't have the capacity to be able to walk with you and unpackage a lot of what you've experienced. So I think any time that a responder walks in, it's worth asking a lot of difficult questions on the front end as far as what's the experience level of the therapist having kind of worked with this population. Because there's a lot of horror stories out there of you guys because if a responder comes in, it's the final hour in most instances. And so then to get in there and to have a therapist that's not equipped suddenly panic and not be able to tolerate, kind of what they're hearing and do their own collapse. We've got 2 people struggling now.
Okay. So you collaborate with a lot of departments.
Mm-hmm.
What makes Chris Jones like you're the guy? I already, for everybody listening, I already warned Chris that he is going to get flooded with first responders because we just want to make his schedule so packed because he's amazing at what he does. But yeah, tell us like your background and why you love us.
I wish I had a really cool story. Y'all found me, I think, more than I found it. I just kept bouncing off of it. And so earlier in my career, I had the opportunity to work with the Arlington Police Department. And so they had all of their recruits doing critical incident training, and a different gig that I had going on at the time was invited in to actually create stress, to do things to try to push them to their limit and then teach them how to decompress and to come down in a matter of seconds and then be able to go out on that next call. So we did everything we could to simulate it. And so got to do that for a number of years. And that was had a really good exposure to more starting to understand a day in a life of what y'all do. And then from there, being a male therapist, that drew some attention. And then I think I'm kind of a guy's guy, and that there's something to that I can get in there with the culture. And, if you guys I told him I'd give him a little bit of a heart, like Jeff Freeman, I know he's been on the show. He's very colorful. And so being able to be able to match him and hear him, to respect kind of how he speaks and the color of it and be able to match him with it is helpful. And so and then like a lot of, when you check out the website, we're not pastel, and which if you look a lot of therapists, so that's just, it's not our approach. So as I got more interested in it, a good friend named Jerry Pena, that's a firefighter, slowly kind of kept introducing me to it and walking me through what's going on. And when I made the decision to do trauma training, then and could understand kind of everything that we've started talking about, I could see it more at full. I just started realizing, got exactly how much truly, how much of your life you actually give. There's a lot of time that's taken off the back end doing what y'all do to keep me from doing knuckleheaded stuff out on the streets, or keeping me out of my own way. I just fell in love with the population and have, I guess, a unique ability to be able to conceptualize and see how what you do and how backgrounds even before your life, in the military or law enforcement or with an EMT, first responders, piecing it all together.
Yeah, one of the comments is colorful. Not sure I've been called that before.
If you've met Jeff, it all makes sense. How about raw? Yeah. Just raw, no holds barred.
Raw, real, but colorful. It fits. Raw, real, and colorful. Okay, so now you have your three words there.
I was trying to be a little bit kind.
Yeah, it's first of all, thank you for your comment, because as a first responder, we do spend the majority of our adult lives caring for others, taking care of others, making sure that we're responding for others on their worst day. And we don't seek out the thanks. That's what we're trained to do. I think that's part of the reason why we have such an issue with the word hero, right? I'm sure I'm not telling you something that you don't know, that like, dude, don't call me that, right?
Right.
That's the beginning. I'm just doing my job. And Yeah, that's true. We have somebody else that is saying, comment, I've been on a lot of your shows and you've had a lot of subject matter experts on to discuss PTSD. I've never heard anyone mention using hypnosis in therapy or it being used to help someone drill down and get deeper or in touch with their feelings. That's another word we don't like. Like, don't ask us how we feel. We're just going to but hypnosis, it's a great question. Is hypnosis used?
I don't use it. We don't have anybody at our office uses it. There are people that use it, and I can only speak to the best that I understand how they use it. I think more often, if they're using it, I could be wrong, and I may get my own hate mail here. A lot of it was going to be to bring down the sympathetic nervous system, and so maybe trying to get the body to slow down and turn off. I don't know how much it does at actually reprocessing the trauma, and again we get into EMDR. We can talk about that. I think that the hypnosis, I certainly believe it can be effective at assisting. We will use a lot of psychotherapeutic yoga here just to try to get the body to slow down and turn off, because every now and then somebody will walk through that's in just such a high elevated state that being able to have any conversation is going to be really difficult. And so if we can just get things to slow down.
Okay, you said psychotherapeutic yoga. We're like tactical stretching, right? For our first responders, right? All right, guys. I told you that Lifeology, that I'm going to show you the websites. Okay, the website, because it is super creative. I have never heard of this. Please explain.
Psychotherapeutic yoga.
Yes.
Think of it. It's and I know that yoga. It's a scary term for a lot of us. It's not about tight tummies and tight butts. It's about being able to help you control breathing, control that anxious, that hypervigilance that a lot of you struggle with. Turning it down enough so that you can relax long enough to actually fall asleep and maybe not have a nightmare, to be able to get rid of the headache, to be able to improve the digestion. So it's breath focused and it's very body focused. And so the folks that we have that are trained here, there are several hundred hours that they do. It's all in the biology of the body and just getting it to slow down. Because again, there's one of the drawers is real specific to what's going on within the body.
So is this is psychotherapeutic yoga something that's a standalone, or is it like a must to complement first responders first starting out with you, that you're going to bring into and discuss some of the biggest traumas that they've been through?
It's a really good addendum to what we do. Not everybody does it, and it's not always needed. It's something we've got in our back pocket to be able to pull in and just help things slow down.
Got it.
So I certainly don't want anybody to be scared off thinking that we're going to, ask them to put on some Lululemon and go do some workouts. That's not going to happen.
No Lululemon, folks. We're not there. Yeah. No, it sounds like I said, the first time I'm hearing of it. It certainly makes sense, because you want to be in a space where the traumas can be processed, where the EMDR can be beneficial. Because I went through EMDR, and if I'm recalling like the first time on the couch, if I was that way every single time, it would never work.
Right.
I'd never be able to drill down and kind of go through that journey. And we talked about tactical breathing, but that's a very interesting thing. If people that are listening, can they go to your website and seek that out and seek one of the practitioners that does that?
Yes, absolutely. And so it can be a perfect starting place. It can be something that's tied into what you're doing. It sounds like y'all use the term tactical breathing. It's probably a much better description of it. And it's probably the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we certainly have some therapists here that are very skilled and trained in both, being able to use EMDR, that full understanding of trauma, and being able to do the psychotherapeutic yoga.
Okay, so I've got the website that's scrolling across the bottom, wefixbrains.com.
That's it.
That is really their website. We did not make this up. Okay, it is wefixbrains.com. I think it's brilliant because that's exactly what you do. You connect the wiring so that we can function again. So let's talk about worst case scenario. And today when I was at Garland PD talking about a badge of honor, what we do, the education piece, one of the officer that organized all this, he's phenomenal, Todd Geary. He had mentioned that after one of our workshops, he was talking to an officer who gave us a testimonial. You'll see it on a badgeofhonor.com, our website. It says, this is the first time in 28 years that somebody has talked to me about this, that gets it, that gets what we went through. 28 years of trauma. Now, not every day is filled with stuff, but there's lots of stuff every day, right?
Yep.
How would, I'm that first responder. I'm referred to you. I come in your office. What do we do?
You guys usually walk in with a pretty good agenda. And so it's personality fit as with any. And so, there's the general level of BS that's going to happen there just to feel each other out. But then it's going to be a build off of what we started talking about here. Let me give you some education. Let me hear you out. What are all the symptoms? What are the things that you're struggling with? Well, I notice I can't go down this part of the road, or, I was around a small child the other day and, I started losing it, or, I can't settle in. I can't enjoy the relationship at the house, or I feel like I'm having a heart attack all the time. So we would outline and really hear currently what you're struggling with, provide you with a little more history and education to why that may be happening, how trauma and the years of the trauma can reinforce that, and how it's continuing to build. And so that may be, an hour, 30 minutes worth of time there. And I would pretty quick try to get into explaining EMDR, what it is that I think I can do to be able to help turn that off, and how that's going to work. And if we're set up for an extra long session, then either it or the next one, we would actually get into eye movements and trying to not get into reprocessing, but just seeing if in office I can get you to just slow down, just slow everything, the thoughts, the body sensations, and to give you an introduction to the awkwardness of what the eye movements are like. And sometimes eye movements just don't work for people, and there's other options that we go to that are just as effective. I just prefer to always start with eye movements.
Okay. Yeah, I just put what EMDR stands for. Hopefully I spelled desensitization right. That's a big word.
I just get close.
But okay, so the eye movements. With EMDR, we have that. We have paddles. We have light bars. We have sensory sound. Do you utilize all of that with somebody, or are there things that some people can't do?
Yeah, I personally, different therapy, you can ask 10 therapists and they may do 10 different things. I go with the eye movements because that's where I'm a bit of a purist, and that's where the bulk of the research over the last 30 years, what it's used is the eye movements. And so I'll start there. Some people just struggle with it there can be different distractions. And so then there's these little archaic looking paddle things that just kind of vibrate and buzz. So the fancy term is we're looking for bilateral stimulation, a left-right interaction with the brain. And so whether it's the eyes, kind of, it's a field sobriety test. It's following it back and forth. So it's engaging left, right brain. There's the paddles that people use. There's what we call tapping that can happen. Usually guys, they don't like me getting up close and tapping on their knees for, all of our own reasons. But
with that bubble. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some physical space stuff there. So, knock on wood, I've been able to, either using the paddles or the eye movements, have been able to successfully get responders and most other folks, outside of that business that have encountered trauma to successfully be able to work through the trauma using one of those two modalities. I don't have a fancy light bar. I know that there's therapists out there that do that.
Yeah. Is there, is there like, hey, it's going to take this many sessions, or we're going to have to do it for this long? I know there's a progression, like, if it's just one trauma, okay, we talk about this, how does it, on the scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, however you do it. And our goal is to bring it down to a 1 or a 0.
A 0, yeah. I wish there was a real clean answer there for you, because you're right. If we look in the books,
right.
Best case scenario, if you have a single trauma, it's going to say maybe in 8 to 10 sessions, we can be start to finish, and it's packaged up and you're good to go. Responders are walking in with complex trauma, in that there's so many that have gone on, and there's so many layers to it. And then there's good news that we get to be able to work within that, and I'll come back to that. But so a guy that I was working with last week, or have been working with over recent weeks, 5 or 6 years firefighting, lots of things, but he walked in and had 3 very distinct memories that were his haunts of each day, and they were the things that were creating all the problems that he was currently dealing with. So by the time we got some background history, explained everything, started walking him into it, we spent about 2 hours on each one, on 3 different kind of, take one event. It took us 2 sessions, a couple of hours, and cleared it. We went into the next one, cleared it, went into the next one and cleared it. And what that did is, because we think of it in complex trauma, if we talk about, say, a 10-year time on the force, there's so many traumas. Traditional talk therapy would suggest that we need to list them all out, the 50 that are there, and talk them to death and kind of work you through it. But because we now have a more full understanding that trauma it's a wiring issue, it's a storage of memory. If in that 10 years there's 20 significant events, we can usually, not always, but usually pull 3, like the first one, the first one that was there, somewhere within that 10-year, the worst one, and then the one that was most recent, which is what we were able to do with this other guy that I just mentioned. And through working with each one, if we think of them all being kind of dominoed together by wiring, if we work with one, then it automatically starts reprocessing and working with all the others in tandem. So again, that's the big break from the talk therapy. We don't have to talk them all to death. And then even in the EMDR experience, we're really not talking a lot about it. We're going in there and highlighting some simple things, but we're pushing through it very quickly. And a lot of times we're able to do it in a single hour, something that's been haunting you for years. We may be able to work through it in an hour to 2 hours.
And that's the great thing, and why we are such proponents of not waiting.
Yep.
Like if you realize that there is, this stress, this nightmare that you keep having, you keep thinking about a certain incident, talk to somebody. Because imagine you talk to somebody, you go to an EMDR session, it's processed, you're done, you're back at work, and it's like, oh, what did I ever make a big deal about? Or why does this stigma exist? Right? Right? I mean, that's ultimately what we want, is like, we don't want you to go 28 years.
Right.
I mean, it's what you do, but it's not fun. That's not a life, 28 years of trauma that can, at that point, I mean, I can imagine, I didn't do 28 years, but the short time that I did and what I saw, I can imagine that you deserve a quality of life. And
it's fantastic. You guys are changing the culture, because I should be almost the last stop.
Yeah. We're trying. And the fact that, you've been in front of recruit classes, that we're now getting in front of recruit classes, it's really starting to change, because if the recruits understand what they're getting into, what life really looks like, and no shame, pay attention to each other, talk to each other, go ask for help. Now, we all know that it all depends ultimately on your command staff, because if it's smoke and mirrors, we're going to call out smoke and mirrors. Confidentiality is key. That's why all the referrals, whether it ends up, with you, Chris, or another one of our partners, everything's confidential. So your department doesn't even have to know. And that's the beautiful thing. It's like, and in fact, that's still most of the first responders that I've met and that I continue to meet, is like, hey, I just found a trustworthy person I could talk to. They said, hey, go to this person, and everything, the department didn't even know. That's
wonderful.
That's great. But we need the higher ups. We need our city councils. We need the chiefs to go to bat for every single one of their men and women who are putting their lives on the line every day, and get the money that they need, because we're not under the paper clips and copy paper anymore, right? That's not the budget for our health. Our health needs to be number one, the health and wellness of your department. If you have unhealthy officers, you have an unhealthy department. That's it. It is as simple as that. If you have a healthy, well cared for department, they are going to give you 100% every single day.
Absolutely. It's on my side. It's as a while ago I said, there's certain things that gave me a more full understanding. I certainly do not have a full understanding of what y'all do. It would never claim to be but even in the last 7 or 8 years, slowly watching it all turn. And so 7 or 8 years ago, then it was just the one responder taking a chance and walking in. And now more and more I'm hearing, hey, I spoke to this other responder, and it sounds like they had a good experience, and they gave me their story, and then they gave me your name. So it tells me people are more comfortable talking about what it is that y'all are experiencing. It's not the thing that they're just going home and hiding anymore. It's out in the open.
Right. And I want to ask you, you are in our sandbox by us sitting with you, explaining what is going on in our heads. We've talked about vicarious trauma, that secondary exposure. What do you do? So when you're out of the sandbox, to be like, oh my God, this was a day.
And actually, the opening thing that through the song and the video, it's, I can only kind of create mental images at times of the stories that I hear. And that one I've heard a bunch. And so to actually visually see it, I could feel myself tense up a little bit.
The opening of the show with the firefighter with the
Mm-hmm.
child. Yeah.
Yeah. What works for me is the experience is really important, but if I get lost in the story and with EMDR, it doesn't really allow me to have to go deep into the story. I can hear it, respect it, and then keep working with what I need to do to help you get through it. It's dealing with certain parts of it, and kind of working with the mechanics of it rather than getting caught up in all the details.
Sure.
But outside of the office, I practice the big three. I do what I can to get good nutrition in me. I exercise, and I try to get good sleep.
Okay, I have to write this out. The big three. One is exercise.
Exercise, sleep, and nutrition.
Okay. 2, sleep. Sleep is key. 3, nutrition.
And then,
yes.
And I think it really ties into what we were just talking about, with more of you being willing to talk about your experiences with each other. In fancy clinical terms, we talk about there's self-regulation and then there's co-regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So on my side, I can do what I can. I can do the big three, but if I just need to kind of talk it out, and not to give details or because there's confidentiality, but if it's just, today was tough. I listened to some tough stuff. I just kind of need to debrief and kind of have that experience with my wife or with another therapist of just, it was a tough day, then that helps. How that translates to what you're doing is, it doesn't have to all be about self-regulation anymore, because that can spiral out of control because you don't get any feedback. Historically, there's been no feedback about what works other than a couple of beers or a lot. But now there's the co-regulation. You have more permission to be able to go and after a difficult call or after a difficult day, to be able to start talking it through, and you get both working at the same time, co and self, much better off.
Amen. Amen to that. Okay, so we started off talking about how creative you guys are. So what I want to do, let's see if I can do this here. I'm going to share my screen. Share screen. Share. Okay. So this is, so you guys, you can see at the top, wefixbrains.com. So you're going to land on this page and dun, da, 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 da. Okay. Here's Chris right here. So you scroll over, there he is now, what he looks like now. But everybody has their kid, I'll call them kid pictures. And
hey, that's my Drew Pearson shirt there.
Yeah, what a way to make people smile. I mean, look at this, guys. It is just, this is here she is with her kitty cat. This is priceless. And yeah, I mean, these are some awesome pictures. I'm going to scroll back up to you. There we go. In, out, in, out.
Yeah, that's my Dallas Cowboys 88. That was a wonderful time.
This was all Melanie's idea?
Yes, that's her thing.
Okay, and here's Melanie. This is Melanie with her cute puppy dog. So there's Melanie as a kid. So again, unique, creative, a little wacky, like, wow, do I want to go see these people? And I'm like, why the heck not? Because this is freaking awesome. It puts a smile on your face. If there's therapists that can make you smile, doggone it, pick up the phone and call them and get into their office.
and just be real. That's a big
Yeah,
part of it, to be human.
for real, for
And
real. So I'm gonna. Is there somebody else that you want me to scroll to before I get off
well,
the screen?
yeah. Actually, if you scroll up to where it's the other direction, there's the locations, and so
Okay,
yeah,
here.
So I'm in the Dallas location, the Fort Worth a time a week, but all those other locations have trained EMDR therapists in it. And we just did a training this last month, to where we had the folks from the readiness group come in. And so for all of us that are interested in working with first responders from all the DFW locations, then we all came in and got just a first responder specific training on trying to, for those that aren't already aware, that want to start dipping their toe in it and training up, they're getting an understanding of your culture. We've got first responders coming in and giving their stories and explaining what worked for them and what frightened them off the first time. And so we do some real specialized stuff to be able to treat you guys as best we can.
Well, that's awesome, and we're so appreciative. We're coming up on the end here, and we always ask every guest. This is your minute to say anything you want to our first responders out there.
Wow. I appreciate what you do. I know it's some of it probably comes across as cliche. As much as have had the opportunity to work for you, I certainly don't ever want to say that I fully get it. I think I can get as close as I can, but absolutely love and respect what you do. Kind of building off that, had a father. I was in the military. I have a great respect for his service. Have a brother that was with the federal government for 25 plus years. His experiences and his traumas are a little bit different than kind of probably what most of you are here, but certainly they're there. And so I have a tremendous respect for what Marty did. So it's wonderful. I really appreciate all that you do offer us.
Cool. Thank you so much, Chris, for really going deep with EMDR and therapy and what it looks like to fix our stuff up here. It is not an easy task, guys, as you heard, and we're just so grateful to you, Chris, to have you in our club, to be able to play in our sandbox, because it means a lot. It means a lot to have people like you understand us. So, guys, there's a website, wefixbrains.com. Please, if you recognize that you need help, especially after listening to the way Chris peeled back the layers of the onion, explaining everything, please reach out. You deserve it. And Chris, until next time, and that we're in touch. We've got thank yous coming down the comment stream right now. Super, super appreciate you, and we'll absolutely be in touch. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I'm not the guy that, if timing or something like that or location didn't work, go ahead and call me or contact me and let me quarterback you into somebody that I know and that I trust that can help you out. Awesome.
Thank you so much. We'll catch you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Wow, guys, what an amazing show. I mean, to be able to go super deep with Chris, that was very meaningful. You know what's meaningful? To have you all week after week tuning in to Mad Radio. We are a giant family that is healing our first responders. We couldn't do this without you. And to show the love and support, we just ask that you continue to be part of the family. Spread the word. If you are watching us on Facebook, if you could jump over to our YouTube page, go to youtube.com, search Mad Radio Texas, all spelled out. Follow us over there. And if you're part of our YouTube family, jump on over to the facebook.com. You can search Mad Radio. You'll see a picture, a circle of me and John So you know you are in the right place. Plus, you'll see all the replays rather, of the shows. And follow us there, because you'll get alerted every time we go live. Now, as we've talked about a badge of honor a lot, we are out all in the community with our police department, spreading the good word about your mental health. And it matters. It matters big time. Don't wait. Get to people like Chris, or somebody who you know that's really effective at keeping you being the human being that we know before all the traumas really get to you. And we can't do this without your support. Please visit abadgeofhonor.com. At the top, you'll see Mad Radio /donate. Every penny goes into our programming and the show to be able to bring you the awesome guests like Chris week after week. And also, after the show is over, if you scroll up on our Facebook page, you will see all of the books from our guests that have been on. Show them some love, pick up a book, support them, support the show. And to all of our first responders out there, we love you. We are praying for you every single day. Thank you for putting your life on the line for us. We value you as first responders, but we value you as humans. And so sending out a big virtual hug to all of our veterans and those that continue to serve overseas. Thank you for keeping us safe here. So we get to do this week after week. Thank you for fighting for our freedom. Until next week, everybody, this is John and Sam with Mad Radio. We'll catch you soon. Thanks a lot.